Hi, I'm Dr. Belly Retzloff, and welcome back to ABA-ish. Today, we're going to talk about how you can use a high probability sequence as a strategy to help when you are seeking cooperation from an individual you are supporting. All right, so to start with, we need to know what a high probability request is since we're talking about high probability request sequences. So, a high probability request is a request that the person almost always completes. So, it's something that somebody does really readily. It's a request that's easy for them to complete and one that, whenever you present it, they have a really good chance that they're going to follow that request that you have placed on them. Now, something that's really important to note is that you actually have to sometimes observe or even test out requests to know what is a high probability request, because this is going to be something that is really individual specific. So, for example, I use a lot of probability request sequences with my own toddlers, and things that might be high probability requests for them might be something like turning on or off a light switch, giving me a high five, or helping me carry something. Those are requests that even when they are really dysregulated or having a difficult time, when they're maybe not complying with a lot of other things that I've asked them to do or cooperating, I see that they very often will follow those requests. Again, that's really specific to those my children and things that I've seen them do. So for your own kids or for a student you support, it might be completely different, which is why if you want to use high probability request sequences, it's really important that you take some time to observe and test out different options for requests to see which ones they're likely to comply with. Some high probability requests that you might test out if you are a teacher or an educator could be something like having the student pick the color of pencil they're going to use, having a student pass out papers, or having a student make a silly noise. So we want to use a high probability request sequence when in kind of two different situations. So the first time that we might do it is something if you know that you have a request that's pretty challenging or that an individual is unlikely to complete. Now, the key here is it still has to be a request that the individual can do. This is a motivation based strategy. So that means it's not going to teach a new skill, but it's a way to get somebody to do something that they're maybe not feeling super motivated or like they really want to do in that moment. So, if you have a request that's challenging or you know is unlikely to be completed, but you know that individual is capable of doing it, you could consider using a high probability request sequence. Another time that we use this is if an individual is demonstrating escalated behavior. So we're starting to see with our toddler that we talked about, maybe some tantrum behavior. There's saying no to everything you ask them to do. Maybe they're yelling or screaming or starting to throw themselves on the floor. For a student, you might see that they're shutting down, they're not engaging with their schoolwork anymore. There might be that they are using inappropriate language or being unsafe with items. So, whatever it looks like for that individual, you're starting to see that they are escalating. That's another time you can consider using a high probability sequence. So, to use a high probability sequence, what you're going to do is you are going to present one of those high probability requests that you have. So, give me a high five, help with this light switch. If the individual completes that request, you need to give them lots of good positive praise and recognition. So, thank you so much for helping me with that light switch. I love how you gave me a high five. That was awesome to see you carry that for me. Whatever that request is that they completed, you want to give them tons of positive praise and recognition for doing so. If you present a high probability request and they don't follow it, give a little bit of time and then you can try another request. Or it might be that you need to just provide even more additional wait time because the individual might be just a little too escalated to even cooperate with those really high probability requests. So if they don't do what you're saying, we're not going to nag them or continue to present the request over and over and over again. Instead, we're going to maybe wait a little bit. We could try again. We could try a new request, but we're going to give a lot of time and space between those requests such that we're not creating additional escalation. Now, let's go back to the situation in which they are complying with the request, they're following you, they're cooperating when you've asked them to do something. You can present then several high probability requests in that exact same manner. So tell them what to do, praise them for doing so, and then you can either present that more challenging task, or you may have seen some de-escalation occur, and now you might be at a situation in which you could look for some functional language and communication to tell you what it is that the individual needs to help them with whatever is causing the escalation. So, why this works is there's a couple different reasons that high probability requests are really helpful for supporting positive behavior. The first is that when the individual cooperates with that request, you get an opportunity to have some positive outcomes. So, you can tell them they did a wonderful job. You might give them other kind of praise statements or kind of attention and acknowledgement for what they've done. And that can build that positive momentum of the individuals contacting successes. It's one of those things where success sometimes begets success. And so, as the individual is doing well and cooperating, you may see more of that occur. Using a high probability request also can help interrupt a really negative interaction cycle. So, if you've asked your child to do something and they've said no, and then you've asked again and they said no, and you get into this really negative cycle where, as the caregiver, all you're seeing and experiencing is negativity from your child. But then, as the child, it's the same for them. They're only seeing and experiencing negativity from us. This is a really great way to interrupt that cycle. So you give them something to do that they're really readily able to do. And then you're able to switch from that negative interaction to a positive interaction of providing genuine praise and recognition for them doing so. The same could be true in a student teacher or student educator type of dynamic where you kind of get into that negative cycle where you're seeing the bad from each other. This is a really great way to flip that script and get back to giving positives. The final reason is that adding these high probability requests when you're experiencing challenging behavior or escalation can serve as a distraction, a redirection, or an interruption to those inappropriate behaviors. So, the other day, my son was throwing a really big fit because he didn't get an item that he wanted, and he was in his room. And I was trying to add it comfort. We were trying some coping strategies. It just really wasn't working. And I switched over to doing some high probability requests. So I asked him to help me with carrying something, which is like his favorite thing to do. So he readily helped. He carried it where I needed him to. I was able to praise him for that. He set it down for me, praise him for that, helped me turn off the light because we were done in that room, praise him for that. And all of a sudden, he's kind of forgotten all about that tantrum he was throwing because now he's got this momentum going in a more positive direction. I hope this was helpful in teaching you about a high probability request sequence and how you could consider using that with your own students or your own children. If you found this video helpful and you want to see more like it, please subscribe, like, or share. Anything that you do to keep my business kind of at the forefront is really helpful. Thanks.